not only in America, but throughout this wonderful world that we call Earth. It's April 25, 2022. The new WCEG welcomes you. This program is Issues and Answers, and I am your host, Norman A. Carter Jr. On your computer or smartphone, you can view or hear us by typing in WCEGTalkRadio.com, or in your browser, hit enter, and on the next screen, click the live stream tab. On your smart TV, are there dumb TVs out there? Yes, they are. Just click the YouTube icon and search for WCEG Network, and you'll find us. WCEG stands for Worldwide Community Empowerment Group. Our programming goal is to leave you more informed and more empowered than you were before you tuned in. Our motto is, we speak life into the community. You may like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and you can view us live on Facebook also, and on Instagram at WCEG_talk_radio and at WCEG Network. Now, very, very important, the topics and opinions and issues on Issues and Answers are those of moi, Norman A. Carter Jr., and my guest, and not the WCEG Network, so leave my boss alone. This is my show, and these are my words and the words of my guest, as illustrious as they are today. So open your ears, open your minds, get ready to learn. Please take notes and watch replays of this program on YouTube at any time. If you're watching on Facebook, please send us your questions and comments. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm so excited today because I've got two dynamite illustrious guests, and they are running for leadership positions in our state and in our country. Now, my first guest is Ms. Tamara Johnson Shealey. We have spoken before and interviewed before. It was in 2020. My goodness, for me, time flies. Didn't believe it was that long. Ms. Shealey is running for the United States Senate, representing the state of Georgia. And, you know, she ran in 2020 for this position, and among 21 candidates, she accumulated 106,767 votes. Now, that's just not running in your own neighborhood. So, Ms. Shealey, welcome to Issues and Answers. I will say that you have an outstanding record as a business person, particularly in the beauty and barber disciplines, and so many other things. So welcome to our program.
Thank you. I absolutely appreciate you giving voice to candidates. You know, I thanked you earlier before we went live because it's great when you get the opportunity to share your platform. So thank you, sir, again for giving me an opportunity this afternoon.
Yes, absolutely. You know, our goal is to make our voters more informed, because there is, you know, it's so difficult to get your information and your platform out there, and we want our candidates who are running for office, particularly those in our community, to get their platforms out and let the people know the choices that they have.
Yeah. And that's that should be the democratic process. But honestly, that hasn't been how things have shaped up. So again, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to share. I appreciate it.
Well, I looked on your website and it says very succinctly why you are running. Mm-hmm. Would you please inform our guest why are you running for senator?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So I am Tamara Johnson Shealey, candidate for the United States Senate right here in the great state of Georgia. I am native Georgian, born and raised in Savannah, Georgia, Bryan, Effingham, Chatham County, all in that part of Southeast Georgia. And, you know, I love Georgia. Georgia is, you know, everything about being native Georgian is who I am. So yeah, running and serving here in our great state, it was definitely destined for me to be here. But I come from the beauty and barber industry, as you mentioned. I spent 27 years in the industry. 18 of those years, I provided services. 10 of those years, I was actually a salon owner. And in the last decade, I have been the senior advocate of politics, beauty, and barber. I am currently the president of the Concerned Beauty and Barber Professionals, and we're a 2-in-1 effort where we address health and safety standards in the beauty and barber industry. And if you get your hair cut, your nails done, or any kind of personal services, you can appreciate our level of integrity with the way we provide services with keeping you safe. So that's what we do. And we're intentional about health and safety. But I've also tracked and monitored policy state to state that affects the beauty and barber industry. So I'm very familiar with politics and policy because of the work I do within my industry. I hold a bachelor's degree in computer information systems. I'm a little techie. And I hold a Juris Master's in law from Emory University. So I'm not just technical, but I'm also legal. So I understand how this landscape actually works. And yes, I did run in 2020, but that was not my first run. This is not my second run, not my third run, not my fourth run. This is actually my 5th consecutive run for office. I ran for the Georgia State Senate in 2014, 16, and 18. I got my feet wet, and I learned a lot about how politics works, and learned the game, and learned the players along the way. So, running now is very different. I ran that special election that you mentioned in 2020 to the United States Senate. And that is where, we really made an impact in those first 3 races. And why I run, to go back to your question, those first 3 races, I have always talked very boldly about race, racism, and race relations. I never shied away from that, because until we address that root, we're going to continue to have these branches that we see today. So I came back in 2020 in that special election, garnering over 100,000 votes, coming in 6th place. The 5 ahead of us had millions and or influence. We came in 6th place out of 21 candidates. I call us the first place grassroots candidate. And, we did the doggone thing. I'm so proud of our efforts, because in that race, not only were we took race, racism, and race relations to the next level, we talked about reparations. Like, we really took it to a whole nother level. We talked about reparations, and why reparations, the urgency of it, and why this is now. Running now in 2022, I am primarying, running against the Reverend Senator Warnock. And this is where we take reparations, a Black agenda, a bold Black agenda, to Washington. We're watching others get what they need, other communities get what they need. So why I run? This is our time. This is our time.
I noticed, and I really have to quote from your website, because where it says why I am running, and I love this. You said, I love Georgia, and I want to make America a better place for all of us, all being in capital letters. Yeah. And I think I thought that was profound. Let's get a little.
We have to be intentional about a rising tide doesn't lift all boats, and some of us are being left behind, and we have to be very intentional.
Yeah, that's I agree. Let's get into your some of your platform, because again, we only have so many minutes, and your platform is extensive. So let's jump right into it. Okay. You want to raise the federal minimum wage?
I do. We can't have workers. Oh my gosh, this inflation, watching the rents go up, watching groceries and gas, $10 an hour, $12 an hour, $13 an hour. That just won't cut it. So absolutely, we definitely need to raise the federal minimum wage to at minimum $15 an hour. And we have to continue to fight for this kind of standard, because we see the plight of America. We see so many people now that can't afford to just make it day to day. So we have to have $7.25 is just not enough. That was never enough, I don't believe. And asking for $15, I don't think is too much of an ask today.
And another one portion of your platform talks about Medicare for all. which is
Mhm.
I think that's um, a topic that's discussed a lot these days.
Yeah, we got to have a healthy population. I mean, education and healthcare, if nothing else America can get right, let's make sure America gets that right. Education and healthcare, you got to have healthy people. So having a platform that makes sure that all of us have the coverage we need is, I believe, is imperative.
Well, you mentioned a rising tide raises all ships. That's no more evident in far as healthcare goes
Mhm.
than the past COVID-19 crisis, where it was important for everybody, rich, poor, and in between, to get vaccinated, and at no cost.
Mhm.
Well, it wasn't at it was no cost out of your personal pocket. That will come out of your tax pocket somewhere along the road. But uh, yes, uh,
But if we paid it in, surely we could get it back out, right?
yeah, absolutely,
They owe it
absolutely,
back.
absolutely, absolutely. You talk about free tuition for public colleges and universities. That's a
Mhm.
rather that's a huge mountain to climb.
Oh yeah, yeah, and what again? Healthcare and education. You want to have a healthy population. You want to have an educated population. You know, these young people today. This is a global society. You know, they're not just competing with those that are around them. We're competing globally, and we're watching other nations that are light years ahead of where we are with their education system and what they're teaching their students. We need to speed it up, and having to pay tuition is too much, is a burden. You know, it's a burden on us as a nation. So absolutely we should have an educated and a healthy population.
I'm going to divert my questioning a little bit here because, uh, according to recent events, it's a great possibility if certain people have their way, we're going to lose maybe a generation of children in this current educational system, with people attempting to rewrite history, uh, not just uh, our social interactions, but even as far as denying mathematics teachings.
Mhm.
So uh, that's another challenge that you'll have as a senator, because even here in Georgia, that's beginning to that's a reality, a big reality here in Georgia.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a lot of work to do. This is our challenge nationally. We have to get this right nationally. And this is why I get excited. There's a lot of great candidates that are coming up, you know, emerging. And I get excited because I think we're going to get it right.
Well, there's some great candidates emerging, and then there's some who shouldn't even be allowed in the voting booth. But that's a whole different subject. But you talk about canceling student loan debt.
Mhm.
Who pays for that? Because there are people who put up funds for that. So how do they recoup if we do that?
If we cancel the student loan debt, you mean who? How do we recoup? How? Ask
Yeah,
me that.
in other words, somebody supplies the funds for those people who elected to take out student loans. So who pays those people back who put up the money?
We need to we could work this out. The budget here in this country, we have a lot of wasteful spending.
Mhm.
Surely we can figure out how to put those money, give those monies back. But yeah, we definitely need to cancel. I mean, this is hurting. You know, you have young people today who graduate and still have to live home with their parents. You know, what happened to the
Mhm.
American dream where you could go out and buy a home and live your best life? What happened to that? No,
Mhm.
you're now you're riddled with student loan debt, and you can't afford to make it day to day. So we could figure it out. We can figure it out.
Now, we've had a couple of programs here on reparations, and you mentioned that, um, and that's a huge topic. But almost related to that, you talk about closing private prisons and private detention centers, um, and we've had several programs on that recently on issues and answers.
Mhm.
Um, Another difficult mountain, political mountain to climb. Uh, and included in that, you talk about ending cash bail, and I don't think a lot of people understand what that entails. It sounds good, but I just heard on the news yesterday that, or last week, that uh, the uh, the failure to appear rate in the court systems here in Atlanta has increased by about 50% since we went to the ending cash bail here in Atlanta.
Well, what happened to the technology behind like the monitoring? If let these people go out and go to work. I mean, you can you can monitor them. I don't like the concept of the ankle monitors, but I understand why it is some necessity. So let these people go out and work. They can be found. They're not lost. They can't cut those things off. If they do, So, I
True.
mean, the technology today is giving way for us to be, we could do things a lot differently.
Okay. Now, we're jumping all over here because you're running for the whole state. And you talk about revitalizing rural Georgia, and I guess your roots probably have you clinging to that. I mean, and rural Georgia is very important. I think a lot of people have the misconception that all of Georgia is like Atlanta, and it's not.
And I tell people all the time when they come here, you better remember Atlanta ain't Georgia.
Exactly.
I make sure I remind them. Yeah, I'm from rural Georgia, so I understand. It's neglected. We tend to neglect people that are outside of the metro Atlanta area, and there's the infrastructure of the technology. A lot of places you go into, your GPS doesn't work. I actually went down to one of the counties, and it was rural Georgia, and it was getting dark on me, and my GPS didn't work, and the man said, well, go down the road and turn left. I said, sir, where? What's there? You'll see it. You'll know when you're there. How am I going to know? So going back to rural Georgia and being neglected, the technology, the phone service, the internet, we want to make sure that all of Georgia is plugged in and tapped in. So I definitely want to see some better infrastructure in rural Georgia.
And I want to go back because a lot of candidates will not talk about this, but we mentioned earlier about you wanted Medicaid for all. And unfortunately, when you bring that topic up, because you know that Georgia is back in the dark ages when it comes to Medicaid. I mean, where there's federal money out there, and Georgia has the leadership, and Georgia says we don't want it. But
that's disheartening.
Well, and the part of the misconception is that every time this subject is brought up, it's by a Black person. And you probably don't know it, and a lot of this audience don't know it. But one of my prior careers was working in government benefits and supervising in that area. And most of the people who would be getting Medicaid and these benefits are not Black. They're not Black, but we never, ever see that portrayed in public. And I think where you say all, and that's why I liked it, but we need to be more clear that this is inclusive of everybody and be specific about that, because I think that that's the holdup on all of this.
And here's where I think we meet them in the middle. Nobody's trying to take away private insurance. Nobody's trying to take away private insurance, but at least have this blanket of policy that if you lose your private insurance, you have a safety net. Like, let's look at this holistically. This is not either or, it's and. This is and. Let's do this and that. So I'm not trying to take away private insurance. I get it. Some people like the luxury of having their own private specialized, that whatever that is. But let's make sure that if in case you do need some insurance, that insurance is available to you and it's affordable.
Well, Ms. Shealey, I have listened to a few of your broadcasts. Yes, I have. And on those broadcasts, there's a lot about reparations.
Mhm.
And you've addressed police brutality and abuse of authority in some of your broadcast cast. Gun violence is a national epidemic. Metro Atlanta was recently rated number 3 in the nation in the homicides. That's really high. As a senator, what proposals do you have to combat the proliferation of violent gangs? And are you in favor of using the RICO Act, which is the Racketeer Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act, to imprison gang leaders and members? And that's
So
a federal
yeah,
law.
my answer to that question and a lot of questions that come at me is reparations. And I think people are like, what? You have to understand why. The correlation between crime and poverty. We have a generation of young people who just see no other way. We have to look at this in a very holistic way. Again, I believe the answer to that will be reparations. And I want to kind of get into that a little bit because I want people to understand the urgency of reparations. The urgency. By 2053, the data says that Black America will have zero net wealth. We're about 13% of this population, but we have only about 2.6% of this nation's wealth. White America has 10 times the wealth. This is generational. The reasons why we are where we are. And even your question with crime, why people are so desperate, why poverty is at the extent that it is because we were never able to accumulate generational wealth that stemmed from slavery, Jim Crow, Black codes, convict leasing, no New Deal, no GI Bill, redlining, war on drugs, mass incarceration, systemic injustice after systemic injustice. So you have a people who have been broken generation after generation, and all we do is try to survive. Every day it's a survival. Some of us, we ain't out here committing crimes, but we wake up every day just to survive, just to pay one bill to get to the next day have to pay another bill. We just surviving as a people. So the root of all of this, and my answer comes back to your question, crime, we have to be intentional about repairing the damage that's done to us as a people with reparations. And reparations is money. Reparations is in my agenda is to create the reparations administration. The same way we have the Social Security Administration, the same way we have the Veterans Administration, we need the Reparations Administration. It'll be a federal agency that will house our redress. Those of us who are descendants of chattel slavery will first be defined in the law. We will have a registry. We weren't a lost people. They know who we are. We know who we are. We know the stories. So define us in the law, have this federal registry that says who we are, and give us all the resources the same way you do, again, with the Social Security Administration, the same way America does with the Veterans Administration. Give those resources and redress Black America. There you go. There's your answer to crime. There's your answer to poverty. There's your answer, America, to making America great. Right there.
One question that I have for everyone in Atlanta, and Georgia and metropolitan Atlanta, when it comes to the subject of reparations, that I think is being totally ignored. We had a scandal in Atlanta just a few years ago, where it was a scandal in education, where these children, we tracked 4,000 children, were denied access to public education in a conspiracy orchestrated by the teachers and this superintendent here in Atlanta, Georgia. Some of these people are getting ready to go to prison. Some already have been convicted and are guilty. This was a conspiracy. And no one, not one person yet, has talked about reparations for these 4,000 children who were denied a public education and who are now in their 20s in the work world and ill-equipped to survive in our society. So would you champion a bill to seek reparations for these 4,000 predominantly African-American children in metropolitan Atlanta?
I am going to champion a bill that includes these 4,000 children in metropolitan Atlanta and all over these United States. Reparations is comprehensive to those of us who are descendants of chattel slavery. So we have to be intentional about our children here in Georgia, our children across the nation, and getting this right with Black America.
Okay. Well, we just have a few minutes here. The time is going by.
I know, it's quick, right? 30 minutes goes fast.
It goes quick. Would you like to round out, have some final points from your platform that you'd like to get out to the public in the next few minutes?
Yeah, I just want to encourage everybody to get out and vote. Midterms are not the sexiest elections, right? They're not the election where people are like running to the polls because, this is not high profile. This is kind of like getting, it's not the Republicans against the Democrats. We don't get that tug of war and the entertainment that comes with politics, because, that sometimes is a lot of entertainment to get you to do what they want you to do. So that's not what the midterms are. So I would encourage everybody to take a look at the candidates up and down the ballot. I would ask that you not go to the polls and vote straight party. I would ask that you look at both sides of this, weigh the issues on both sides of the aisle. Look at this in a very holistic way. Look at this in a way that you figure out, does this make sense and this makes sense, and put it together, because I think it takes a combination of it all for us to really move the needle as a people. So I'm just encouraging people to get out to vote. Election day is May 24th. Early voting starts May 2nd. So I would encourage you to get out to vote. Get out to vote and look at everybody across the board and make a real decision based on policy, not people, not party, not politics. Make a real decision.
So you brought up one point there that I thought maybe we need to emphasize, and that's something that I promote on social media, is not voting by party, but voting by the quality of the candidate. Mm-hmm. and their relationship to your issues. Mm-hmm. Because I consider people who vote by party lazy voters. Mm-hmm. I mean, and no, this election coming up, and it's a primary, and it's not sexy, but we have people who are running in this primary who are going against one of your platforms, and that's the right to vote for everybody in a free and open election. There are some people who are actively campaigning right now in the primary, and what they want to do is suppress and nullify the votes. So it ain't sexy, but we need the turnout that we had last year or last national election, and that turnout really upset the entire country. Mm-hmm. And Georgia was one of the leading countries. Even then we had I just heard the other day 2 million people didn't vote. Well, I think we have some extra time here. So there's one other thing I think we ignored in your platform, if you don't mind. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Criminal justice reform.
Yeah.
You want to?
I don't believe we should lock people up and throw away the key. I want us to be very intentional about rehabilitation and what that actually means. Don't just send people to jail and put them away, and there's no way to bring them back into society that helps all of us. And I think that's where we just continue to drop the ball with criminal justice.
We've had some prison career professional leaders in the prison system. Mm-hmm. And people who are actively working with the prison system. We've done several shows on that. And what we found out is that nationwide, and we've interviewed people nationwide, there is no rehabilitation in the prison system in the United States right now. Mm-hmm. There is none. And there are volunteer organizations. We have Reverend Adderall Fisher, who came on Issues and Answers and volunteered his services free of charge. He's done rehabilitative work, got no takers. But currently, right now, our prison system is not equipped to rehabilitate anyone. They're basically like holding facilities for people who commit crimes. So
the profit, but the profiting behind the prison system, those private prisons it's too much of a profit. They got to keep their inventory, right? Keep these people coming in and staying in and coming back. It's a vicious cycle.
yeah, it's the way that it's set up, because for what we found out is that we have the taxpayer paid portions of the prison system, but we also have these for-profit portions of the prison system. And what happens is the for-profit prisons have to be filled before they start filling up the other ones, the public funded. And that's sort of backwards, because the money for these private entities is already set out and budgeted. So that's one of the problems with that system right now, the way it's set up. And you talked about a lot of things that we talked about on prior programs: mental health and substance abuse treatment in our jails and prisons, closing private prisons, mandatory minimums.
Yeah, I think they definitely need there needs to be some discretion with, some of our judges, every circumstance is not the same. Again, locking them up and throwing away the key. Here's your cookie cutter way of incarcerating everyone. So yeah.
Well, Ms. Shealey, we thank you so much. Thank you so very much for allowing the public to see who you are and what you're about here on Issues and Answers. I wish you the best of luck in your campaign, and please feel free to contact us if we can be of any help to you in the future. We thank you so very, very much.
Thank you, and I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, Issues and Answers continues as we bring on Mr. Kwanza Hall. Mr. Hall, I'm just going to give a little bit of background about you. Mr. Hall is the Democratic candidate for Georgia's Lieutenant Governor. He's a former U.S. Congressman representing the District 5 and the seat that was previously served by the late John Lewis. He also served elected positions, several in the Atlanta City Council and the Atlanta Board of Education, for a total of 15 years. So he has a long record of public service, not only by himself, but also in his family history. Mr. Hall, are you there?
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I got stuck in some traffic, so I'm not stationary. As you know, Atlanta traffic is so unpredictable.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to be perfectly stopped, but I'm going to pull over so at least I can kind of focus on the call. But yes, thank you so much for having me, and I really appreciate you all giving me the audience today.
Well, as you're about to try to pull over, I'll give the public a little bit so you don't have to do two things at once. Your public service is rooted in your family history. I brought that up, and goes all the way back to your parents being your beacon of hope, and Leon Hall, who worked directly with Dr. Martin Luther King, one of your mentors, to your own time on the school board, city council, and then in Congress. Lots of government interaction here. And your life has been about a purposeful service that pushed against the grain and fights for what is right. Service is what you do, and you have inherited a legacy of leadership. Comes down all the way through your family to now, and you've been a perfect example of that. And for those of you who don't know, and why this position is so important, not just here in Georgia, but nationally, is because the last election, the last national election, Georgia was pivotal in determining who became president of the United States. And for those of you who haven't paid attention to the news, we had an incident where the president of the United States was attempted to blackmail or force the lieutenant governor of Georgia into sabotaging the election. And fortunately, the lieutenant governor had enough integrity to resist that. But had that been another person, things could have turned out far different, and thousands of voters' votes would have been disregarded, thrown away. And this is what we call voter nullification, going along with the voter suppression that we know that is actively in existence here in Georgia. And these would be some things that would come under the purview of Mr. Hall, should he be fortunate enough to become our next lieutenant governor. Are you still with us, sir?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. And yes, we've got a very interesting dynamic happening in our state. We are really ground zero for the future of our country. One of the states that's really in the throes of this type of level of battleground happening between the Republican establishment, but also the far right and our Democratic leadership seeking to figure out what the future of our state and our country is going to be. And I think it also has significant international implications in light of the war in Ukraine that is embroiling and having impact all over Europe. So we are, all eyes are on us. And I offered myself to serve because, as you mentioned, I'm the child of parents who worked in the civil rights movement. My father was the youngest member of Dr. King's staff. And, I did inherit that legacy and never knew doing anything else but community service. That's all we did as children, going around Atlanta and working with a variety of community and youth groups, whether it be through NAACP, where I was the youth vice president, or through the youth group we formed to stop the violence. It's kind of in my DNA, and then it kind of transposed into my service as a school board member in Atlanta school system for 2 years, and then 13 years on the city council. All of that work has really, my body of work and service has really been about helping families and children to move forward and creating a shared vision that really doesn't get so divided based on race, class, or demographic, sexual orientation, nor even party in some cases, because I always had to deal with the downtown business structure, the midtown business structure, Central Atlanta Progress, and Midtown Alliance, the real estate community, the developers. All of those corporations have a tendency to be more Republican, but I also had the communities that are in the district, which included Inman Park and Old Fourth Ward and other places like that, Ponce Highlands and Canler Park, which are generally very progressive, tree-hugging community that really stands for what I have embodied as a child of parents like I had. And then the families and children who live in the Bedford Pines community and corridor, where the average income is $3,000 a year, average rent is $12 a month. And we've been able to figure a strategy to lift all as best possible with the investment that came into that area. We need to do the same throughout our state. Families and children are suffering. We know that Georgians are not receiving the prosperity that has been touted. There's significant investment, but not everyone's winning. And with the impact of the pandemic and COVID, and then just generational poverty, we've got to take a structural shift and change our strategy and change our approach to really making sure these resources that I've helped to pass as a congressman get down to the people. This $5 billion that is sitting in state bank accounts that is not going out to families and children for rental assistance, for a plethora of things. And we got to turn that around and make sure that checkbook is spent for families and children instead of just these small checks that have been dispersed for tax, kind of as this tax relief. And I think it's just such a token and a slap in the face when the money was really dedicated for real relief, and it should be spent for that. And that's what I'm fighting for. I'm fighting to make sure we have affordable health care, affordable an expansion of Medicaid, justice reform, honest elections, and prosperity for all.
Uh, Mr. Hall, I was reading your platform, and it seems to me that unlike many candidates, you're not just running to be running. This seems to be a personal endeavor for you. I'm going back. First of all, I've seen Butch Miller's commercials and heard his commercials on the radio, and if you, those of you who are just living in a bubble, I invite you to listen to Butch Miller. Scary, very scary.
Yes.
And we have a former congressman, and you, sir, who watched the insurrection unfold. And you say, quoting you, it was scary then and it is scary now. We have to stop the madness and put the real issues first. And we have people running right now in this primary who are promoting the big lie still. And you will be in a position to combat that as lieutenant governor in the state of Georgia.
Absolutely. You know, I was there, you know, growing up we went to protest with Hosea Williams and we marched in Forsyth County. You know, I was there doing the community work as a leader just in our community, but in the 4th Ward and in the King District, but then also as a school board member, as a councilman, but then as a congressman, to be there with such an affront. With now we have people on the opposite side that could potentially take over the leadership reins of our state who were trying to overthrow the government of this country. We can't let that happen. I mean, I was going into the building. So my hotel was just 2 blocks from the Capitol. And that was the one night I stayed there every night that I was there in Washington during that period. But it was the one night that the hotel staff told me I couldn't stay there. And during that period, there were Trump protesters in the building, but we never thought that they would resort to violence in their approach to exhibiting their beliefs. I grew up in Atlanta, I grew up in Georgia, and everyone has the right to protest. But when protest goes to a coup attempt to overthrow our government, that's something very different. And many of our members could have lost their lives. We know they had the gallows up. We know he was in a bunker. These people cannot be allowed any further day of light in terms of leadership in our state. And that's why I'm running. I'm running to make sure that doesn't happen. And I'll do anything in my power to ensure that in November, we've got a Democratic leadership up and down the ballot so we can take our state in the direction that it's supposed to be going in.
That was really leads into one of my questions, because we have a candidate running for governor who believes in the big lie. And as such, he would be an advocate. He would be an advocate for voter suppression and voter nullification. That's part of their platform. So if you win, the political pressure on you would be tremendous. This group of people believe, as you said, in the violent overthrow of government if the votes do not go their way. Are you prepared for that? And do you speak about that in your campaign?
Yes. Well, so first of all, that big lie that they're trying to tell, you know, I'm a businessman, and in business, you have to be pragmatic in your approach to things. And you tend to deal, and I've dealt in downtown and midtown, I had to deal with everybody. And generally, we've dealt around a very difficult issues, but those have been issues that there wasn't a threat of violence involved. And I was raised from the mantra of nonviolent social change that Dr. King inherited from Mahatma Gandhi. And I would still want to bring that same level of fervor. You know, it's vigorous, nonviolent exchange that we have to have, but they're coming from a very different place. That's why we have to make sure we turn out these votes, because they will do it at all costs, meaning violent tools and tactics as well. And that is not something that we can allow to happen. Already, we know that the guns have been put on this, are being allowed on the street. And if anything, they would love to have some type of race war or some type of battle around using this as the excuse. And it is not acceptable for, I mean, I think some people are taking it lightly that this is going to go away, and it's not. When I was in Washington and I listened to my colleagues on the Democratic side talk about, oh yeah, President Trump is he's going to vote on the budget, he's going to get everything through, and that man did the exact opposite. He held it all up, and they've been in the weeds a little too long, and they've been believing that they can't see the forest for the trees. We've got real insurrectionists on the ballot with a
Yes.
strategy and plan to overthrow our government at all costs or get control of it if they can. And we've got to stop them. That's why we've got to, sound the alarm and get all these Black men and women and communities of color to turn up and turn out to vote, because we have the majority. And it's not just, people of color who help us win. We know there's good white folks out there who've been fighting with us all along, back to the abolitionists. But in this particular case, we've got to turn out our community because we have the numbers. And actually, and frankly, back in 2016, they were convinced, in particular, Black men were convinced not to participate in the process or to go the other way. And that narrative cannot be allowed to stand. And that's why I'm offering myself in this candidacy, because I believe I can speak to those men who chose not to participate in this process. We've got to get our brothers and sisters off the sidelines, and in the game. This is real. It's for real.
I actually commend you for something that you said, and I thought I was the only one who's saying it. But what we're seeing here is with these relaxations of gun laws and allowing all of these guns to be out there in the public, there is really a demonic reason for that. It's not a good thing. And as you said, there are people, they're doing this for the purpose of their desire to have this race war. And it's scary, it's factual, it's not hyperbole, folks. And so far, Mr. Hall is the only candidate that I've heard running to mention this. And I think that that's extremely important. And believe me, I am not on his campaign committee. So don't get that twisted.
But the threat is real. And that's what I feel. I mean, I feel it in my heart of hearts that if things we need to be prepared in both cases. One, we need to be fighting hard to win, but we need to also be prepared in the worst case if things were not to go their way, what they might do. And that's the point. They're sore losers. They've never not had the privilege of running things the way they have run it since this country was founded. And that's the real point we need to not lose sight of.
That's one of the reasons why for the past year, I've been promoting people to read a book called Wilmington's Lie, which actually is what we're going back to, where you're going to have armed people discouraging people such as us from voting. That actually happened here in the United States, and it will happen again. It will happen again if you're not paying attention. Mr. Hall, currently there are 10 Democratic candidates for the position of Lieutenant Governor who are running in this primary. What separates you from the field, from this field?
Well, first, my unique upbringing and experience as an elected official. I've served in more bodies officially as an elected member, school board, city council, and I've worked in county government, and I served in Congress for that brief period. But also, it's not just being there, it's the track record and what you've delivered. And I've passed more legislation than all of the candidates, my opponents combined. I've been a part of or introduced my own legislation, 750 pieces of legislation as a council member alone, not counting my track record on the school board or what we did in Congress. And in Congress, I gave, more than a dozen floor speeches. I spoke every time I got a chance to speak on the issues that I think, I stand for, but what Congressman Lewis gave us a foundation on related to voting rights and justice reform and justice in general around transportation even. There's inequality that we have had to live with and swallow for too long. And I just wanted to pick up the baton and carry that mantle, and I did it. And the other thing that's unique about me is that I was there in this battle. I've been on the battlefield, but I was specifically there in Washington, and the people we're going against are coming at our heads, and I'm going right back at theirs. And that's why I'm in this fight. We've got to take it to them, and I'm committed to fighting harder than people have ever seen me campaign. I love the campaign. I have been all over the state already. We've been to Augusta, we've been to Macon, we've been to Dublin, we've been to Warner Robins, we'll be in Savannah, and all these places are not new to me. I'm not new to this whole thing. I've been in Georgia. I was born and raised here. I didn't come here. And that's no offense to anyone who's relocated. We're welcoming of everyone, but I've been eating this red clay since I was a child, and I've been living on this earth in Georgia for 51 years. I turn 51 next Sunday, and I'm inviting you all to come and celebrate with me. We'll be at the Park Tavern from 3 to 6, and everyone's welcome. But I think my also approach and ability to bring people together and navigate very difficult situations. The body at City Hall is one of the most difficult bodies to move an agenda forward on. And it's not just because you're dealing with, other council members. It's a nonpartisan, but they have their own political perspectives. And some are left and some are right. And then you also have to deal with the executive branch. And I've been doing that for 13 years. And it's hard. I lost all my hair fooling around down at City Hall. And anybody will tell you that's some real rough and tumble, and it's a blood sport there. There are others who served, but you have to look at the track record. What have they actually passed and delivered? And they're good people. So I have to say, everyone in the race, I consider them family. They're in our family, they're in our village, and I have respect for them. But at the same time, my track record should stand up, and my tenacity for campaigning is really about who will turn out the votes in November, who has the best profile, the best likelihood to connect emotionally with Georgia voters and get them to turn out for our ticket. That's what it's about. And I think I'm the most unique and special person with experience and track record to do that.
One of the things that I looked up, the qualifications of a lieutenant governor, is that you control the flow of debate and conversation in the state Senate. And one of the pressing issues for the past 10, maybe 12 years has been Medicaid funding in Georgia. Will you and can you form allegiances that's working across the aisles that will allow for a discussion of Medicaid funding in the Georgia Senate?
Absolutely. I mean, to get things done in a body politic, you've got to have something to leverage and negotiate with. And I've got special tools and special relationships that I can call upon and use to move the agenda forward that I stand for, and that I think the citizens of Georgia overall overwhelmingly will stand for as well. And that's, providing an expansion of Medicare is an obvious thing that we should have done a long time ago. So to stand up when those papers come to me, I'm going to use the bully pulpit to ensure that we get things done. I'll use my relationships with the library. I'll use my relationships with the business community that are not new, but we've already worked together on a variety of things in a variety of capacities. And then I'm going to go sit down with each of the senators one by one in their own town and speak to them and bring my friends with me who are from that area. I've got friends all over the state. They're not all Democrats, but I can reach out to them and get them to help me to create a shared vision for our state, because that's what we need in the legislative body. We need to make sure that our legislature doesn't spend a whole bunch of time fighting over things that don't matter, and then you come out of the session and you wonder what we got done. That would be a travesty and embarrassing. I want to make sure that we've got 3 to 5 things we get done as a collective, because we know they all matter. And I will work with everyone to ensure that, but I got to make sure that our Democratic friends are standing with me as well, and I'm sure they will be. And we got to be able to come bring things to the table. We're going to be working with Governor Stacey Abrams to make sure that we can carry the agenda that she's already put as an overarching umbrella out there and deliver on the promise that we've been saying that we're going to make sure happens for our citizens. President Biden is looking at us. The whole world's looking at us to see Georgia make a change and turn the page to a new chapter, a chapter that will be history making, but it's making history because we're going to change the lives of our citizens like it's never been done before over the next 4 years.
One of the things that Georgians probably don't realize, especially those who have not been outside of Georgia, is that Georgia is very unique. I think it's one of 26 states in the country where the election for lieutenant governor is independent of the governor. And that's an important check and balance that a lot of people aren't aware of, because as we see in the last national election, that became very, 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 very important. I would like to say, again, I'm not in your camp or anything, but I was happy to see, I live in the northeastern portion of Gwinnett County, almost outside of Gwinnett County. And I was surprised, pleasantly surprised to see your campaign signs all over the area where I live. It's hard to go anywhere now and not see your signs. And I've seen, I think, one commercial that you have on television.
Yes, we've been on television and on radio in Atlanta and around the state for at least 60 days. Mm-hmm. So, there are many others, we've been in the race for, let's just say 2-3 months, and there's others who've been in the race for 2 years. And we got up and got out there because this is serious. I'm not playing with this campaign. We're using everything we have we're planting the seed that we believe will bear fruit as we go through the summer into the fall to win this election. But we got to get through this early vote period, and I'm imploring and urging everyone that's on your audience to vote early on May 2nd. Again, you're invited to come out to my big birthday bash, May 1st. Everyone's invited. Go to Eventbrite and sign up. And from there, we're going to vote early on May 2nd through the 24th. And after we win this election, we're going to go and bring everybody back in, all of the other candidates, and we're going to work as a team to win this election in November. There are no big I's and no little U's in my camp. We're about everybody contributing the best that they can, because everyone can be great, because as Dr. King said, because everyone can serve.
Well, Mr. Hall, I really thank you so much for taking the time to come on Issues and Answers. I'm sorry for the fact that you were actually driving, and I'm pretty sure that you're pulled over now. Do you have any closing remarks, any closing challenges for our public information?
Well, I just want to say thank you again to WCEG for having me. I appreciate what you do for our community. There was a time when we don't have voices to kind of get the word out about what's going on, like the big media outlets. So we've got to make sure we support you all, and we're available for you, and that we make sure you thrive. And that's another thing I want to do, is make sure we support, all of our communicators and journalists and people who make sure that the facts are out there, and who's doing what, where, with our resources that are supposed to be coming to communities that need the most. And I just want to say thank you for what y'all do. Sometimes it's under acknowledged, kind of like teachers and like, frontline workers. So thank you for the noble work you're doing. And I see you got some great books on your wall, and love to continue to connect with you. And anytime you want me, you've got me carte blanche over CNN and MSNBC for sure.
Thank you. And we will take advantage of that invitation. And I'd just like to pass on to our listeners that early voting here in Georgia is May 2nd to May 20th. Primary voting date is May 24th. You should already be registered. Voting hours are between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. If there's any ties or anything, the runoff will be June 21st. And of course, the general election is going to be November 8th. We thank you so much, all of you. I thank my guests who have been on this program, Mr. Hall, Ms. Shealey. It's been wonderful. It's been informative. And we wish you all the greatest of success, and look forward to having you again after your victory right back here on Issues and Answers on the WCEG Network. Thank you, everyone. Take care of yourself. Please get out and vote. Take care. Goodbye.
Thank you.